Um, and before we get started with today's Special Dad's Special Calling, I'd first like to talk about tonight's host, which is the Center for Disability Empowerment. The Center for Disability Empowerment is a 501c3 nonprofit agency. We're a community-based, non-residential agency, center for independent living that is driven by choice and direction of people with disabilities. We are one of 12 centers for independent living who work through 5 core services, which would be information and referral, peer support, advocacy, independent living skills trainings, and transition services. And this right here is our mission statement. We will empower Central Ohio to include people with disabilities as participants and contributors in all aspects of the community. And with that, I turn it over to Deb, who will introduce our speakers.
Just one check, Jamie, is the Facebook Live running?
Working on it. I can only do one thing, so working on it.
All right, we'll wait and then we'll restart.
Will we be able to see the people who are attending?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so we can, they'll be able to voice questions if I unmute them, but no, you cannot see them.
I have a question. I think we're going to wait for Q&A at the end. Okay, so Jamie, just say ready and then I'll start again.
Okay. It's going to take a while. Let's see here.
It's worth the wait.
Okay, it is working, it's loading.
I thank you all for being patient. And I believe Facebook is live, Jamie?
It's loading right now, yes.
Okay. Give me another second.
There we go.
All right. Thank you, Jamie, for that information. Jamie is one of my co-workers with the Center for Disability Empowerment, and she works with our youth, ages 14 through 24. My name is Deb. I am a transition coordinator, community connector, and I'm also working with the DODD Grant Ohio Family Network. And I'm really excited tonight for you all to meet these dads. They're pretty awesome dads, and they come with different experiences because everybody's different. But before I introduce you to them, I want to speak as a sibling. When I was, let's see, probably like 35, I went to a Johnny and Friends Ohio family retreat. And that's a Christian International Disability Ministry, and actually their office is based in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember so clearly, you have a whole week of on and off activity throughout the day. There's volunteers to be with your person with a disability throughout the day. And it's just such a huge blessing. And they also have men's groups, dads groups, and women's groups. And I'll never forget, on Fridays, always when we tell the stories of what that getaway meant to that person himself. And this man, he said, when I first went to my men's group, I told him, I don't want to be here. My wife made me come, and I don't like the fact that my daughter has a disability. And he said they just let him spew. And he said, and through the week, I came to a place of trust and peace. And he probably would never have had that opportunity because it's really hard for our dads to get away. And all I could think when I was hearing this story, I wish my dad had that opportunity to be with other fathers. And so anyway, so with that, that's Johnny and Friends Family Retreat, and I can give you a link later on. I want to introduce our panel. We're not going to change the slides right just yet, but maybe Todd, I'll have you introduce yourself, and then you'll pass it on. I believe it's Corey's next. So, all right, Todd Martha, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Todd Marthaler. This is my son, Sam. He's my youngest of three. I have two great girls, and Sam is a budding animator, just full of life. My wife and I are really blessed to have such a wonderful family and good siblings for our son. He's now 20 and just budding. It's great to spend time with you all. I'm very honored to be here with Corey and Everett, Dr. Rich and Ahmad to talk about our experiences as special needs dads. It's quite the journey, as many of you know, and we'll talk more about it as we get into how we better understand and accept the diagnosis and how we found out about our kids' challenges. Corey?
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it. My name is Corey, and I am the father of three wonderful kids. Everly is 6, and Brody is going to be 8 soon, and then Lindley is going to be, or is 11, and all of them get additional services through the local school through an IEP. But it's Lindley who's really had an impact on my life. She's now 11, as I'd mentioned, and she has spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. She can't do many things, but her smile can really light up a room, and it's brought my wife and I so much joy with these three wonderful kids we have in our lives. And I'm really excited to be here tonight. I'm really thankful for everybody else being here and for our additional panelists being here. So thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Corey. My name is Anand Shekharan, and you see Kevin next to me. He's our eldest. So I have a wife and another younger son. Kevin has been such a blessing for us. We didn't quite know how to start and deal with Kevin, but now he has added a lot of meaning to our life. I'm very excited to be with you all.
Hello, my name is Everett Bayless. This is my daughter. My daughter is an awesome girl. She has a really strong desire to be independent. She's very active. She tries to develop her skills, and she has her own learning strategies that she works on. Her goals are to be independent and to live on her own. And right now she's going to be entering her last year of high school and in a job training program. So during this entire pandemic, she has been in school. So.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Richard Montgomery, and I am Richie's dad. About 14 years ago, I met the woman of my dreams, and when we were dating, we thought about getting married and finally got married. Then we wanted to wait and have a child after about 3 years. And we had about 9 years ago, the most awesome gift ever, which is my son, Richie. Being a dad is like being in a love that you can't even really describe in words. I still wake up every day. When he was a baby, I would stomp down the hallway so he could hear me coming, and he would giggle. Now that he's 9, he's sort of like, "Hey, Dad, can I continue watching my TV?" But Richie is the curious, bright, intelligent young man. He wants to be an astronaut. His mom and I have sort of circled the wagons and are doing everything we can to make sure that whatever he chooses to be, he can be. So I'm happy to be here tonight with the other dads and be able to tell his story and ours.
Thanks, Dr. Rich.
All right, so we'll take it to Todd, and we'll stop sharing the screen.
Thanks, Deb. So one of the things we wanted to talk about, and we want this to be a great learning experience, and we learn from each other as dads. And one of the things that we talked about going into this was trying to get an understanding of where it all started. You know, how did we come to find out about our kids' diagnoses? And, you know, then how did we learn to accept? Because that's really hard, as you all know. For Sam, he was 3. We were living in Utah at the time, and we took him for a diagnosis. And I remember this really clearly, that my wife is the rock of the family. I'm kind of the skeptic sometimes about certain things. And when Sam was diagnosed with autism, she just was right on board with, hey, what do we do to get services? What are the types of options we have? And I'll be honest, I was in denial. I really was. I kept saying to myself, well, he has a learning delay and he'll come around and all of those things. And he has over the years. That's the beauty of all of this, is that it is a joy and a blessing, but you know, coming to accept where Sam was, his lack of social skills at the time, his inability to express himself, his lack of eye contact were all signs that I really couldn't believe. And I almost at the beginning blamed myself, you know, and thought that was something that I owned. And I really came to learn that God really blessed us with, you know, 3 great kids and entrusted us with Sam, and that he could do anything. And I think it's back to what we've all started to say here, was these kids can do anything they set their mind to, right? It's just a matter of finding that, you know, that spark, you know, what motivates them, what helps them to communicate. It's really, really powerful. But it took me a while, but I did learn to accept and acknowledge the opportunity, the challenge, the blessing that was Sam, that God entrusted me with a boy. And much like was said earlier, I was so excited to have a boy. It was just this great to have my girls too, but it was a real joy. And it's been quite the journey over 20 years. But thinking about how it came to accept the diagnosis was one of the tougher things. But I finally came around. It took me probably about 1.5 years to really get there and realize that he was a real blessing and joy in our lives. Corey, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So ours was a little different in that we had just a very, very general diagnosis from the very beginning of a traumatic brain injury. And what everybody was telling us is we don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what can happen. She may walk, she may not walk, she may talk, she may not talk. So in the very beginning, it was very uncertain and very unclear, which made it tremendously challenging, tremendously difficult to traverse this new life that we'd never anticipated. And but what has happened is, as she's grown and the diagnosis has just continued to come, there's a plethora of them. And you know, it seems like as soon as you got over one hurdle, another one came your way. And so you got adjusted to that one, and then another one came your way and you got adjusted to that one. And sometimes a few hit you all at the same time. And it was really hard to adjust with these diagnoses as she grew, and adapting to those became pretty difficult, really. But we've made it with a lot of persistence, a lot of patience and grace, and it definitely hasn't been easy finding all these diagnoses as she's grown, but we have, and we've managed. And Dr. Rich, what's your experience been?
Well, we didn't know that Richie was going to have any developmental issues. My wife, when she was pregnant, around the 3rd trimester, I can say this now, she was huge. And we couldn't figure out why this little baby had her at such, had her so large. She looked like she had, multiple babies in there. And when we went to the doctor was saying that, the baby isn't consuming the fluid, and we didn't know why, and the doctor couldn't tell us why. So they had on the day they were going to we were going to deliver, they had the NICU team there because we didn't really know what to expect. And I just remember the doctor pulled him out and he didn't cry. And you know, we've all seen hundreds of people have birth, and first thing you hear is the cry, and he didn't. And then they rushed him off to this room where the NICU team was waiting, and I rushed behind them, and you know, they were doing compressions, they were giving him oxygen, and once they got him finally stable, I was like, "Is my baby going to be okay?" They were like, "We don't know." That was a very difficult feeling to digest because I've been waiting for this day forever. I've been waiting for this. And even then, he spent 31 days in the NICU, and when he left, we had no answers. We just simply had, you know, he came home on oxygen, and about 6 weeks later, my wife, it's a Saturday, I'm out doing grocery shopping, and my wife calls me, and you could tell the shudder in her voice, you know, she was afraid and something was wrong. And she says, "Richie's wheezing." So I rushed home and we took him to the hospital, and both of his lungs had collapsed. So we're in the hospital, both of his lungs had collapsed. We ended up there almost 2 months, but during that time they did a biopsy, and they found that the muscle weakness that he had from birth was part of a genetic disorder called congenital fiber type disproportionate myopathy. Sort of a little bit of a backdrop. My wife's sister had that condition. She had been born with that this condition and had been in a wheelchair all of her life, and she passed away when she was 25. So here I am. I've got a diagnosis. We did genetic testing. They told us we were fine, so we didn't expect this. And now we have a child who has the same condition that her sister prematurely passed from. So it was very difficult road trying to wrap my arms around what do we do here. But you know, I had a strong father. We are a strong couple, and you know, we have just relied on each other to make sure that every day Richie is breathing, we give him his best life.
Thank you,
That's
Doctor.
great.
It's a great story. Appreciate that. And Everett, how did you learn of the diagnosis with your daughter?
Everett, you are muted, sir.
And now, how about we give you an opportunity while Everett works on his mute there?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Corey. Kevin, I mean, we were living in India, so we are from India. So Kevin was born in 2007 as our eldest son. So, I mean, his birth was quite natural, very normal. And for 1 year, we didn't observe anything very different from Kevin. In fact, at that point in time, he had a lot of words. I still vividly remember that he would name the TV commercials before the actual commercial name comes up, just by looking at the commercial as a short movie. And we were amazed by that. And then right after he was like 2 years, I had to come to US for work, and so my wife was there in India to deliver my second son. So she had kind of looking at Kevin from a very young age, and then we came here to US in 2010. Me and my wife, and with both boys, and I had signed up for the early childhood center for Kevin, doing his preschool, and then during the course of that school year, at the end of the school year, I mean, every parents were called to discuss the progress, and Kevin's teacher was talking to me and my wife, you know, about the kind of things that she has been observing for the last 5 months, and that's the first time we heard the word autism, and I had to really go back home and Google what autism mean. So I had no clue about what to expect. That's when we knew that that Kevin needs some special you know, treatment in order for him to grow. And that's when we also, as per the teacher's request, we went for diagnosis, and we got the diagnosis done. And from then on, like he was in school, and now he's in the middle school.
Thank you. And Everett, what was your experience like?
You know, mine was a very gradual process. The pregnancy for my daughter was very uneventful. No complications whatsoever. The delivery was uneventful, no complications. It was very smooth. There wasn't even, my wife did not even have an epidural at the time. And, you know, when after Luisa was born, everything seemed to progress, but then we started noticing that she was not making her milestones. She wasn't standing up when we expected her to. She wasn't walking. Then she started crawling. And the only real issue that we noticed at that point, though, is she had developed an egg and dairy allergy. In fact, we discovered that accidentally because she spilled her milk and she rubbed, she took her arm and she went through the milk and she was rubbing on her arm and her arm started turning red. That's when we discovered she had an egg and dairy allergy. And so she was still only about, you know, a year old at the time. With time, then her speech and development was delayed. She was not talking the way we expected her to. She was not starting to talk. And I don't remember exactly when, but it was definitely delayed. And I remember the first challenge I had was we asked the pediatrician to prescribe speech therapy. And the pediatrician said, no, we only prescribe speech therapy for children of which the general public, or at least half the general public, cannot understand what the child is saying. And I looked at him and said, I cannot understand half of what she says. That's when I got speech therapy. Then we enrolled her in preschool, and she missed kindergarten. In fact, twice she was held back for kindergarten, and we finally got a neuropsych evaluation. And they came back, and now she is 4 years old. And they came back with central auditory processing expressive and receptive disorder. And they said that, so we got that diagnosis, and I was talking to one of her teachers, and her teacher pulled me aside and said, you know, in school, we cannot really meet her needs here. You really need to find a different place for her. And so I did some research, and I ended up finding another school for her that used special techniques, tactile teaching techniques in Orton Gillingham with special needs and this type of disorder. And so she was actually making progress in school, but again, I started noticing there were delays. I mean, some of her peers were moving ahead. She wasn't able to keep up. She wasn't tracking conversations. She did really well one-on-one, but if you put her into a group, she had trouble tracking the activities and what was going on. And everybody loved her because she was a great child. She was very pleasant. She was friendly. She talked to people, but it was always one-on-one. Then I started noticing that she had characteristics of ADHD. And I tried to get the pediatrician to evaluate her to prescribe some medication for it. And they kept giving me a questionnaire. And this is where things really started getting frustrating. And I would answer the questionnaire and they would say, everything's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. And I really had to, at that point, recognize that I needed to answer the questionnaires as if I was a stranger. The greatest problem you have as a parent is you know your child. So when you answer these questions, you're answering them based on your experience, not that of a stranger. So actually, I had some other people help me with the questionnaire because they were outsiders and they saw things differently than I saw them. So that was one of the first things I learned. So a friend of mine told me about a specialist who worked with children in ADHD, and I called them to make an appointment, and there was like a 6-month waiting list. So I took her, and by the way, it was like an 1.5-hour drive from where I was. I took her to this appointment, and they tried to do some testing on her for ADHD. It was a computerized test that they wanted to do, and she had a meltdown. And when they finally got my daughter calmed down and they took her out of the room to do the testing, the psychiatric nurse practitioner looked at me and said, "She's autistic." I mean, what do you mean? And she's like, "I'm telling you, she's autistic." So we got the diagnosis of the ADHD, and we actually were able to demonstrate it using the computer and the software program, which is really good because it was an objective test. And they used that when they started adjusting her medications, and they could actually see the changes in her scores and patterns to fine tune her medication. And after that, though, a psychologist evaluated her, and this was a neuropsychologist, and I had to write a journal, I had to keep a list of behaviors, and he worked with her, and they came back with the diagnosis of autism. So that was really good because that actually got us into the school system with an IEP because of the ADHD and the autism. Well, we were in the IEP meeting, and I was describing some of the concerns I had, especially with my daughter going to school and, you know, walking to school versus taking the bus, because technically speaking, she was in an area where she should have been walking to the school because we were close enough. But the school psychologist said, you know, I need to do another evaluation on her because I'm seeing some things that weren't picked up. So he did another workup on her, and they identified her as having an orientation and adaptation issue. She gets lost in her own neighborhood that she grew up in. So my process was a very gradual process. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was hit with something. I knew from a very young age that there was a problem. And as the years went by, it's kind of like I was being spoon-fed issues. So it wasn't a major adjustment. I'd already accepted that there was an issue, but it seemed like something kept coming up. Every other year or so, more and more information was coming to light. So it's been a journey. It really has been.
And that's one thing.
But yeah, she's a great kid. I mean, she's very active. Learn.
Thanks, Everett. I think, you know, you mentioned a couple of things there about challenges. And I think each year things change, right? We have new challenges that come about, and it's unpredictable, right? We're not sure quite how to handle it. We lean on other people because we all haven't figured it out yet. I think it's really important that we keep our minds open, right? To be able to understand what our opportunities are and listening to other people. Everett, it looks like you are still muted.
Definitely.
There you are. Okay.
No,
Sam, can you talk a little bit about, oh, yes, Everett, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
every now and then.
Go right ahead. So challenges you faced recently that you're tackling, and how have you learned to adjust and tackle those challenges?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Who's it for?
It's for you, Everett.
Okay. All right. My challenges, it's really just been one day at a time. My challenges right now are she's safety is always a challenge, especially going out. I've had to deal with a lot of boy issues. So socialization, working in school. In fact, when she started in school here, I told him I was more concerned about socialization and safety than I was the academics. I've kept her in school longer. In fact, I think you're allowed to stay in the school until you're 21, 22. So she's going to be required to graduate after next year, but I have been taking it one day at a time as things come up and working with teachers. And right now my goal is to transition her into employment. So my challenge right now is transportation and letting her use the transportation independently.
That's a big one.
And getting her ready for a job.
Yeah,
does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think, you know, we're not in a very different stages. How about you, Anand? What are your top two challenges you're dealing with right now, and how do you tackle those?
I'm still learning. I mean, in fact, every day, as Everett said, it's like every day is it's a different day, and every day there is something new that Kevin. I mean, we have an experience with Kevin. sometimes we learn a lot about him on a day. I mean, he's 13, so yeah, naturally, you know the relationship between a dad and a son when they are in teenage, right? Even typical children. He has been very, very close to me in the younger ages, right? So he comes and gives his very light hug to a dad and so on. I still long for that, but he is 13, and so now he doesn't want me close enough. So he keeps me at a one-arm distance all the time. But in terms of safety is what I'm thinking as well, because there were days that we cannot just let him all by himself. So as he started exploring and he's already like 5 feet plus. So he is able to grab many things from the shelves, and he can open the doors, he can get into the garage. The only thing that he doesn't know is how to open the garage door. Otherwise, he always loves to be outside. So safety directions is always been a challenge. But however, we have seen that he is also adapting quite well. There were times where we will run around pretty away from the home, but then now as he is growing, I mean, he pretty much has confined his territory. Looks like. I mean, I'm not sure and I'm not very confident, but still, we always need to keep an eye on him. And it is pretty much like even in our sleep we need to be awake. Right, because we never know when he's getting out of his bed, even for a bathroom or something like that. So that's been one challenge, and the other challenge, I don't know, like probably the answer keeps changing as he grows. I believe, like I'm still trying to figure out a meaningful activity for him to engage during leisure. Kevin is still not, I mean, he's not interested in any of TVs or video games and so on. So he likes, he likes to take a ride with me, and he loves long trips. But other than that, when me and my wife are working and we are spending time with our other boy who's typical, Kevin still doesn't have a meaningful activity to engage, and that is something that I'm trying to figure out, explore, find out. So those are the two things that we are working on.
Yeah, meaningful activities are just hard to find what they connect with, right? And you just got to keep trying and see what other people are doing. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we all have, and things you can do together, right?
Right.
How about you, Dr. Rich? What are some of those meaningful activities that you all are able to do together? You think helps you build connections with your son?
Well, my template for what I do with Richie comes from me having a really awesome dad. When I think about fatherhood, I kind of think that we all leave off with what we either imagine to be good fatherhood or some of the things that we actually experienced. And, my father was one of those people who he was going to be at every football game, every track meet, every orchestra practice. So in the same way, we've had me and my wife have had two kind of outlines for Richie. One, we want to push him to get involved in things that might be out of his comfort zone. But also we want to make sure that even when it's not a special activity, that we're just spending time together. A lot of times, we talk about it. I tell people the joke, particularly when you're a previous early intervention therapist, one of the most successful feats of growing a kid into an adult is that they continue to live after 18. If you ask those people, were they good parents? Absolutely. But I think when you define what being a good parent is having that one-on-one, eye-to-eye contact engagement. It's easy to be in the same room and, they'll live till 18. But I try to do things like when the pandemic hit, Richie had a lot more opportunities for screen time than I would prefer, but since he's in a wheelchair, his options for explorations are a lot with what he can manipulate that's right in front of him. So we would play video games, and I tried to introduce him into rap music and the music that's kid appropriate. when we listen to it, he wants me to stop it every second and translate what the person said. And I found that to be a really good bridge into some deep adult conversations. Well, Dad, why did he say he wanted to do that? Well, Richie, when you get to be a grown-up, you have to think about life this way. So it's things as simple as sort of playing video games together, listening to music, and having those deep conversations. But at the same time, Richie takes swimming class. He's probably on robotics class, which is why I just had a horrible internet connection. On Saturdays, he takes singing lessons. He was doing hippotherapy, which is, getting on a horse to get that balance correct. We've done adapted canoeing, adapted everything. We find, one of the advantages of living in a place like the greater Cleveland area is we're not alone. We're a family who has a child with a disability, but there are lots of families in our area. So we've been blessed in many ways to have access to adapted activities that you wouldn't typically get. Like, we moved here from Toledo, where it's a ghost town for resources like that. So we've tried to get Richie involved in as much as possible. With having a 9-year-old, one of the challenges has been him being a 9-year-old. Richie, we want you to take singing lessons. Now, we're thinking of it as speech therapy, but also something fun that he can do. And his first answer is, not going to happen, Dad. I'm also a little more permissive with how my child talks to me in comparison to my own dad. But by that same token, saying, well, yes, you're going to, do singing lessons. And now the boy is waking up early. I have singing lessons tomorrow. I just want to make sure it's on your schedule to remind you we got singing lessons. So a lot of the activities that we've done is trying to, one, get him out of his comfort zone, but also to make sure that we're not just spending time in the same room, but we're actually interacting and engaging.
That's terrific. How about you, Corey?
Yeah, meaningful activities for us look a little different. So Lindley really enjoys loud sounds and bright lights, and the faster she can go and do something, the happier she is. Before, we've actually gone to a skate park and taken her wheelchair and gone up and down the half pipe and all that sort of thing. It's really finding what she enjoys and then how we can make that happen. She loves going to concerts, and that's been difficult to do lately. So she just really enjoys the noise, and finding opportunities to do that now is difficult. One of her favorite things is going to basketball games. She loves the sounds and the squeaking on the court and the whistles, and she just loves it. She really enjoys it. So it's finding those opportunities that she really enjoys, and making sure we give her the opportunity to enjoy those with all of us, which is sometimes hard to do when you have two younger siblings who might not find the same things to be as fun. But we find ways that we're all able to engage with one another and to enjoy one another and the things that she enjoys doing, which has been really exciting through the years as we've learned what those things are.
That's great. I mean, for Sam and I and my wife and my girls, it's been trying to experience things. It's like the spaghetti test, right? You throw the spaghetti against the fridge to see what sticks, and it's a matter of really finding what makes your kid tick. I think, Aman, you were saying it's or maybe it was Rich. You said this the language you use or how you connect with them that I think is really important. Sam, as I mentioned earlier, loves animation and likes to draw. And then from a very young age, he would even draw characters that he would see on TV and movies and videos on the sidewalk or in the driveway. I mean, just really cool stuff. And I'm like, wow, he has a passion and a skill. Like, how do I help him harness that? Because this is something he loves to do, and he'll do it day and night. And it's incredible. So we're very fortunate he's found something. And something I think was said earlier about, pushing them a little farther. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to Temple Grandin over the phone through a friend of mine. And she's just very inspirational. If you've ever read a book about her and her accomplishments, just one of the most famous people with autism in the world. And one of the things she said that I thought was really, really powerful is it said, you know, you always want to challenge your kid to do more and do more with the passions that they have. So with Sam, we even got to the point where we took animation classes down at a local college where he's using software that they're using in movies. And it was a struggle, mind you. It was not very easy software to use. So it didn't go great. He did it for a couple of years and then found success using Adobe on an iPad with a Mac pencil. And he's just done really incredible things there. I think the other thing that's really important, especially for kids like Sam that don't have a great deal of social skills, like he'd prefer more often to be alone or just to be with us, is to get him into structured social situations. So whenever you can find that, I think it's really important. We were very involved from the very beginning, probably when Sam was 7 or 8 years old, in Special Olympics. And while during the pandemic, things have changed a little bit as far as activities and things they can do, it's making a slow but hopeful comeback here. He's played every sport, whether he's liked it or not, to a point, but we found ones that stick, that he really loves. Bowling. And that's something we do almost every week. Got him his own bowling ball and bag and his own shoes. So he's got activities that he really loves. He learned how to bike. It took him 3 days at a local program to learn how to ride a two-wheeler, and now I can't chase him down. So there's certain things I think that you find in structured activities that the kids will like, and there's others that they don't, but it's important to challenge them and stretch them if you can. And then I think it's reward and recognition too. Every kid, every adult likes a little recognition or a support in their life. And I think whenever we can give them that encouragement and they look for it, I think the other thing is to have routine. My son really needs that routine. We've been very lucky that he's been able to take on things like chores around the house and do things like just simply putting his clothes away or emptying garbages and things like that, that are things that he's going to have to learn as far as life skills. Those aren't easy things to do. And we went from a journey when he was much younger where we'd be in a store and he couldn't express himself and be upset, and he would just fall on the floor in the middle of a department store, and you know, people are looking at you like, oh, so what's wrong with you? Don't you know how to parent your kid? And it's really frustrating. But to see your kid come through that kind of a journey where he can learn some independent skills while still, you know, living with you and preferring to live with you, I think that's really, really an important thing. And to find joy in things that they like to do together. I think when you have a kid that's not as social, I think it's really important to put them in structured social situations where many of us have heard about, you know, and work through parallel play with our kids and to find activities. That's how I connect with my son, is that I learn the cartoons and the stories that he likes. And then I do impressions around those characters that he talks about. And that's how I get into conversations with him. And then I turn the conversation around about, hey, what did you do at school today? Give me one thing. Or tell me what you want to do today. Let's go pick one thing. So there's preferred activities that he loves to do that I think he needs to earn. And then things that I challenge him to do, that's things that he doesn't like to do, but just has to do them. And I think that makes it really powerful. I wanted to turn questions around too, around community, because I think this is a great opportunity to share in community, right? And share our faith in what we're trying to do with our kids. But are there, for each of you, are there certain groups that you become part of, affiliated with, where you've been able to not just build circles for themselves, for your kids, but circles for yourself? Because I think we need to enrich ourselves, enrich our wives, our families, right? To give them that energy, right? Because it's challenging. Dr. Rich, maybe you could start with that. Are there groups or community groups that you've been involved in with your families that helps to inspire you, inspire your families, give you new energy when sometimes you just don't feel like you have it? You know what I mean?
Well, that's an interesting question for me. So on the one hand, Richie played baseball last year, and this was one of those things where we had to stretch him and to get him interested in, and it was an adapted baseball league. And for me, this was the most comfortable time I've been around a group of people, because as like, I'm a former football player, went to college, had some pro tryouts. I'm really a competitive person. So it's not that I don't think Richie needs to be competitive, but I think that the competitiveness, the expectation of his competitiveness when he's surrounded by kids who are like him, took the pressure off of me to just let him be a kid and not worry about my competitiveness side. Being around, the goal is for them to throw the ball in such a way that each kid, no matter what their ability level is, to be able to hit it. They're going to do the traditional run around the bases. Nobody's chasing them down, trying to get them out. And Richie got to go out and be free. And because Richie wasn't the kid in the wheelchair, but he was a kid among kids in wheelchairs, it was a much more freeing experience than I've had in many other places that we go. We've tried to raise Richie to be a kid, not the kid in the wheelchair. And that's sometimes difficult to navigate when you're around an entire crowd of people who are typical, and they're looking at you as the parent with the kid in the wheelchair, or him. So for me, having a bunch of families around where the bar isn't who can get to the first base the fastest, but simply participate. That was enjoyable for me. Now, the other part to that is, we're sort of a religiously divided family. My wife and I are both Buddhist, but we're both Buddhist Christian. I'm a Buddhist Christian who says, let's go to church. My wife is like, I'm going to meditate here today. So, but I'm a dad, and I've got a young man who I need to teach values. And I had strayed away from going to church myself, I recognized that once Richie got well enough to be in a crowd like a school or a church, it was time for him to be able to go. So the hard but easy thing is, we have nurses for Richie that work overnight so we can sleep. A lot of times nurses don't show up for a whole lot of reasons, because nursing care is spotty no matter where you are. And because I've gotten him involved in church, I sometimes, when I do the night shift, my wife relieves me at 4. I'm back up at 7 to take Richie to church. And as few hours of sleep, as much as I would like to just call it off and tell him we'll make it next week, I dogmatically get up and make sure that we're there in church, because aside from teaching him about spaces where his faith will grow and be built, I also recognize that that's the one time of the week where I can let my mind be free too. So, I'd have to say in summary, being around, those families where, I don't have to feel like my son has to be out there being competitive. He can just go be a kid. It has been helpful for me, and being able to talk to other parents who have different journeys but similar. And then also, like I said, my religious beliefs that, my son's going to have hard times when he grows up. He needs to be able to fall back on something. And there's nothing, nothing in my opinion that's been stronger for me than being able to believe that there's something that's going to get me through this. And I needed to impart that on him. But like I said, some of those Sundays, it's just a good feeling for myself.
I hear you. I mean, I have the same experience with church. I mean, I had, one of the reasons I found the church that we go to now is because of my son. They have a great program where they really adapt for kids and adults that have disabilities, and they really take care of them. And it gives me time to breathe and to believe and to take faith and just relax a little bit. And I think that's so important. Corey, how about you? As far as groups that you guys get involved in, whether it be for your daughters, your girls, or yourself, what do you do to kind of build that community for them? And then what do you do to build community for yourself, and rejuvenate? Because I think that's really huge. Those are things that we need to do for ourselves.
No, absolutely. So one thing that our family participates in is an organization in Columbus called A Kid Again. There's also a chapter in Cleveland and one in Southwest Ohio in the Cincinnati region as well. And it's an agency or a group that has monthly activities for families who have children with these illnesses and pretty significant disabilities. And once a month, you get to go out and the kids get to be a kid again. We'll go to the zoo one month. We'll go to or Wyandotte Lake, 1 month. There's a Christmas party 1 month. So every month there's something where we're involved in a community. And within this community, you start to see people the same time every month, and you start to see other men and other dads. And so you start talking and chatting, and we've really been able to build some really positive relationships just by getting out and getting involved and finding a community where the whole family can really embrace this life that we're in and with others. And on top of that, there's a really great opportunity whenever I meet with other men to talk about books that we want to read and that sort of thing. Right now I'm involved in a group and we're looking at a book called Common Man, Extraordinary Call. And it gives us a time weekly to sit down and talk with one another about different chapters of the book as we read through it and how that challenges us to be better men, but also and fathers, but supporting one another and hearing each other's struggles. And even though we all may have different struggles and different challenges with our children, we're all kind of on this train together and we can support one another. And I think it's really important to find that community where you can share your struggles and your frustrations and your concerns and your worries and find that support from somebody who gets it.
Yeah, that's so important. Everett, how about you? Groups that you've been involved in with your kid and groups that have helped to kind of rejuvenate you or bring your family together during the challenges you've had?
It's interesting. We do a lot of community service. So what I really found is a diversity. So for example, we volunteered at a soup kitchen. And it was really good because Louisa could go and be independent. She went to a different part of the soup kitchen and she did certain things. She volunteered in the clothing area. And I was in the kitchen cooking. And what I found is that she just liked the socialization. It was a limited and controlled environment. She felt safe there. And she was able to use her skills and contribute and be helpful. They gave her actually assignments and she worked on it independently, and that really helped build her self-esteem. In fact, she's the one who insisted on going sometimes. She's like, Dad, we have to go. These are homeless people. They need food. We have to get them and give them breakfast. And 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning, she was getting me up. So we also belong to, I belong to the Masonic Lodge, and we were very active in the Masonic Lodge. We did a lot of the fundraisers and the Saturday morning breakfasts, and she loved going there and being with the ladies. She liked being with the ladies. She worked with them. She bussed tables. It was an opportunity for her to socialize, get a lot of recognition, positive feedback, and also to develop her skills. Aspirations was a great social group out of the Nislonger building. With Aspirations, she met other kids. She was in a teen group. I was in the adult group. We had the monthly meetings. They made friends. A lot of us got together outside as well, individually for social activities. And then we had some church activities. She was involved in a dance group, which is really good for her. It was a structured dance. She was able to make some friends. It did not involve memorizing lines. It was more dancing to the beat of a music, and she liked it. And it was a safe environment. So what I found is things that she can do that she knows what can be expected, and she enjoys doing it. We also volunteered at a horse rescue facility. And she helped take care of 40 horses. And, we got out there, she was feeding horses in 0-degree temperatures. And she would say, Dad, let's go. We have to go. These horses have to eat. So she liked it. It was activities that she enjoyed doing. And sometimes I was there and sometimes I wasn't. But once she got comfortable with the staff there or whoever the adults were, she didn't want me to be there. Actually, she was saying, "Daddy, go away. I'm okay." So those are things that we did together. She really liked one-on-one time. When she was younger with friends and school friends, she did things. But for her, being one-on-one, especially with adults, was the best because she wasn't competing with other people, and she knew that if she needed time to say something or to express herself, she was going to have it. She wasn't feeling rushed. So I would tell you, we probably watched hundreds of hours of Law and Order Special Victims Unit. And it was also a good way to teach her about safety and social skills and verbal cues and nonverbal cues and things like that. So whatever I could do that she could learn something and be engaged. We went to church, interestingly enough. We went to several churches, and she was not interested in going to the church service. She wanted to work in the nursery and take care of the kids, and that's what she enjoyed doing. So again, it was structured and safe, and she was doing something she liked to do, and she was getting positive feedback. So anything like that, that's what we do. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yep, I was muting myself. No, I think it's about, you challenging them and them finding things that you can enjoy together and that they can do independently. That's tough to find sometimes. How about you, Anand? Have you found things that you click with in the community and groups that you and your family can take advantage of and kind of feed off each other? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Everett. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, she also went to Camp New Hop.
Oh, yeah.
And Camp New Hop was an awesome. She was there for sometimes an entire summer, which was really unusual. But the more I put into those environments, the more independent she was getting. So that was an awesome place for her.
That's a really good suggestion. Camps are big. If you can get them involved in those types of things, those are terrific.
Yeah.
How about you, Anand? Have you found things that community groups or things that you can do as a group for your son and with your son to kind of meet other people and have that sense of community?
Yeah, definitely, Todd. As a, when we came over here as a young parent and coming from a different country to States was an experience. And during those initial stages, I was trying to isolate myself because, it was really hard for us to go ahead and mingle because, Kevin wouldn't stay in one place. He'll keep running around and he may go into somebody. When we visit some of our friends, he may get into their kitchen and kind of mess things up and stuff like that. So at a point in time, I was almost ready to, isolate and, not really mingle because I felt that if I kind of ring fence Kevin, within our control, parents' control, then, we would be better. But soon I realized that's not how things work because I have been surrounded by a circle of great friends and family friends, and they never let us alone. If there is a birthday party, we are there and we are probably one of the family who is last to leave the party. And then they said, like, just leave Kevin. Don't control him. Let him do whatever he wants. Even if he messes something, that's fine. Even he spills the juice, that's fine. And even he spills cereals on the floor, that's fine. Just you just relax was some of the great words that my friends gave me. And then moving on from there, the church that we go to has been so much of blessing. The sensory room program that they have for special need kids, that's been awesome because there were times where only one of us can really go to the church, listen to the church sermon in the gallery because one of us has to sit with Kevin in the special needs room. But today, like, he has adopted from day one, and it's been so much of a blessing for us. And I really, really thank the teachers there, the caregivers there. It's been so awesome experience. But But more than that, I really don't have, I would say, the forum that I can go with Kevin, because Kevin, he likes to stay by himself. He likes to stay alone and kind of wander. And as I already said, that there is no meaningful activity that he would do where I can go ahead and kind of be a part of another forum where they all do this together. So it's always been an individual activity with Kevin. But what I'm really thankful for is, I had a lot of one-person community, meaning in my life that there has been one person who came and said great words, great encouraging words for me. And I still remember, the county coordinator of that time, when Kevin was like probably 3.5 years ago, and now he's 13, probably 10 years ago, there was a person who came and said, hey, there are things that you will go through in life, and there are very deepest emotions that you will go through, something like anger, depression, frustration, loss of hope. But don't give into all of these things. The moment you accept and you come above all of these things, you will see progress. And in fact, that was he had a special needs son, and then he showed me a picture that he was a high schooler at that time, and he was playing a music instrument. He showed me that picture, and he said, look, it was on top of his office shelf, and he said, look, like your son was my son was like your son. So you have to quickly accept and get over all these things. You have to go above all these emotions to look at things, what you can do for your son, and don't lose hope. And I have had like several one person who could represent the community for me to give that encouraging words. And I'm supported by my circle of friends, and we have a special needs parents group in our church, which we go ahead and share our experiences about school, about what we are going through in life, about our relationship as parents, how are we dealing with our siblings. So those are some of those topics that we share with each other.
That's great. We've been very fortunate with school. And now we're actually back in school and getting life skills. So my son goes to a local college, learning both life skills and potential job skills. And I think challenging the kids to do things like that, to be able to grow and develop over time, those are things that I never thought he'd be able to do, right? And where he started and where he's come over all these years it's really inspirational. Corey, I want to ask you this. If you had, for the audience here in this group, one thing that, truly inspires you and motivates you to, find that next best thing, that keeps you going. What is that? What is that magic for you with your daughter?
You know what? It's that smile. She's got an amazing smile. She can't talk. She can't communicate, whether it's with a machine or with her hands or anything. But when she smiles, there's just something super powerful about that, and about finding the ways that make her smiling, enjoying those smiles with her. When she was younger, she loved to go to the bounce houses, and I'd carry her up and I'd slide down 100 times. It didn't matter. She's 60 pounds now and going to bounce houses and going up and down slides just isn't going to happen anymore. But it's finding the things that she really enjoys and embracing this life and enjoying this life with her. It hasn't been easy. It's been very challenging, and there's been a lot of obstacles and so forth, in the way. But finding a way to embrace this life and genuinely enjoy it is what I strive for every day.
How about you, Everett? What keeps you inspired and motivated and trying to find that next magic for your daughter?
I think there's two parts to that. One of it is selfishness on my part, because I have other things I need to do and I need to move forward with certain things. So I'm looking at that side of it. But the other part of it is for me to achieve my goals, I need her to be independent. So I'm really encouraging her to be independent. And so we talk about, what do we have to do to be independent? She wants to be independent. So, okay, you need to sit down and help me do the household bills now. You have to understand how the bills work and what we're doing and why you're earning your allowance and why you're earning your paychecks. For me, it's whatever I can do to help her to be more and more independent and self-sufficient, and be able to engage other people. And that's what I'm constantly striving for. I don't think there's really one thing. If I can find things that she likes and she can make friends, or she can do things that helps boost her self-esteem, that's what's important to me. But it's kind of, there's a selfish side to it too. I need her to be independent because I have things that I have to get done. And so she needs to be independent so that I can move forward, and she needs to be independent so she can move forward. Because at some point in time, I'm not going to be around. So I'm looking for self-sufficiency. What's going to happen when I'm not around? So everything I'm doing is geared towards that. And, I work with her, and something happens, if there's a problem, and I say to her, if I wasn't here, what would you do? Who could you call on to help you? How could you do this if I wasn't here? And sometimes her question is very appropriate, and she does need help, like everybody. And sometimes she's frustrated by that. And I say, there's times that I have to ask for help too. Maybe I have to use a resource, or I have to reach out to somebody because I need help with something. So there's nothing wrong with that. So my thing is independence. And she wants it. She's very proud of herself. So the more independent she gets, the higher her self-esteem is.
That's great. I look at the joy that I see in my son's eyes when he accomplishes something, and whether it's drawing something, earning a reward, all those things are just, they get me juiced. It gives me energy too. And some of the joy I have is just spending time with him at the end of the day. I mean, when you're online all day working, it's great to come off that and get out and spend time together as a family. And for us, we really challenge Sam to to do everything with us. We try to get out, and I'm not a big mall shopper myself, but we go to the mall together, and we go out to eat. We try to travel together when we can. It wasn't easy in the beginning. I mean, I think the other thing, and I don't know if you all do this, but the idea of creating social stories is really important. Maybe Dr. Rich, have you had to do that at all in your travels with what you guys have faced together, and trying to get your kids on board with those kinds of things, building social stories and getting them involved and setting them up to let them know what's going to happen next in an activity or a chore or something?
Well, Richie has a dual diagnosis. He also has autism. So Richie, we've had to be very patient with trying to ease him into different things. One of the dads mentioned earlier, he doesn't like loud noise. I'm loud. I am loud from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep. And, helping him be able to help regulate, Dad, you're too loud. Okay, Daddy will be a little calmer. But also Richie, since birth, I'd say maybe we noticed it around 18 months. He does not like anyone to hug unless he has given them permission. And once he had a trach, and once he got his trach out and we could start understanding what he was saying, one of the things we learned is, sometimes kids go through this attachment period where if they see their parent hug somebody, they'll, be upset by it. He wouldn't stop. And once he was able to start talking, Richie, what's wrong? The hugging. So that was an initial indication that we needed to probably get him looked at for autism, along with a couple other things that he was presenting at the time. But
Oh, looks like we lost Rich. All right.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're back.
Okay. I was saying my wife and I kind of cheat at this parenting game. We're both educational psychologists. My master's degree is in special education, and I'm a trained early intervention therapist. So when I recognize what Richie's boundaries are, where he's because he does have this series of sensitivities to things, we found a balance at figuring out constructive ways to acknowledge them, but also to help him work through them. There's just gonna be time that I ran for mayor in my town last year, so I'm hugging everyone. not last year, the year before last. So he's out with me. I'm teaching him to sort of Everett's point. I'm teaching him to be a grown-up. When he grows up as a young man in the country we live in, he's going to have to understand how to advocate for himself in the system. So, part of me doing that and demonstrating that is being involved in politics and taking him out to social situations where I'm out hugging or shaking hands with people. We finally got it to where he won't cry, but you can look over at him and tell him he's right there at the edge. He's upset about it. But we have we're both also trained in behavior analysis, so we've been able to kind of recognize what the antecedents to certain behaviors in Richie are going to be. So we've been able to try and maintain a certain comfort level for him, but also, like I said, being able to strike a balance between his comfort and the things he's just going to have to deal with when he gets to be an adult.
That's really good. And have you been able to get your son kind of oriented toward, hey, these are things you're going to have to do I know you're early on in the journey, but things that, you're going to have to learn how to do, right? And kind of get him used to doing some of those things. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, definitely, Todd. Definitely there are certain activities that we want him to be independent with. My my baseline is very low, having known Kevin and his intellectual capability. So I'm looking for him, learn the basic living skills. I think I would say that's a great achievement for Kevin. But however, like any special needs parent, right? I do believe in miracles, right? And some of those miracles can happen in our life through small things. And just to give you an example, like in COVID situation, like I have never even expect Kevin to sit in front of a computer and respond to what his teacher is saying or asking him to point to or select or group them together. But we have seen that happen in the in the last couple of months. On his one-on-one classes, he's able to respond to his teacher and kind of at least touch and show how to group things, things of same color or things like that, right? So I see that as as miracles in our life happening, and I'm pretty sure that it'll all happen in all of our lives, and I wish that happens. But however, though, there are situations where Kevin would probably need a long-term care, or he's going to be dependent on some other person for his lifetime. So there can be situations like that. So some of those things that I keep thinking about is like, while I still make efforts and to teach him and make him learn, but I'm going to come to a point or hit a ceiling saying, this is all what Kevin can grab and do by himself, right? But recently I've been thinking about that a lot, and I was I was discussing with Deb and a few others as well, like being a special need parent or being a special need family, or being a sibling with a special needs. Now there are certain goals and aspirations for these families and these independent people. Now I've started thinking about like why should for any reason that those dreams should not or could not be realized through help. And the reason I think about it a lot is because I mean there were some ambitions and goals for me as well, which I thought about it, but I'm not going to achieve it because that I have my life has reprioritized and reoriented, based on the things that we have to do for Kevin. So as I thought about it, I thought about like how can we make these dreams come true for another family with special need kids, because I think we need a community that needs to be built, because as I think Dr. Rich said that Everett said that I'm not going to be here forever to take care of Kevin, but how am I going to leave him in a community that I think it is safe and there are people who can understand Kevin? It could be his younger brother, or it could be some of his cousins, or it could be someone who has the similar thought process of coming together to support all of our kids, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their intellectual capability, irrespective of their basic living skills. So that is something that's a thought that is in my mind, and I'm deeply thinking about to see how we can make that small progress to create a community, to create an environment where all of our kids are celebrated.
Yeah, I mean, and create love and circles around them.
Absolutely.
I think is really important. I mean, then there's the whole idea of, how do you create support, financial support around your kids?
True.
How, estate planning, special needs trusts, all those things are really important. Those are things that, we've done. And I think those are, give you some peace of mind. But I think the most important thing is, do you leave your kid better off than, where you were, right? I mean, I think, our parents say that, I had a very loving family growing up, and they were always there for me and always want to be there for mine too. They set great examples. I think for us is, when you have great family around you, you tend to mirror those great experiences and the love that they provide. So it's pretty great. But this might be a good time. We've got about 10 minutes left. If we have any questions in the chat, Jamie or Deb,
Yes.
that we could answer.
Let's see here. I want to make sure I capture everybody, so I'm just going back through the chat really quick.
I just typed in a question that someone had about how to release stress in the marriage.
Yes. Yes. If you'd like, I can read that to everybody if you all want to answer it. The question says, if you are married, what do you and your spouse do to work on the stress and help maintain a healthy and happy marriage?
I mean, I'll be happy to start. I think part of this is to find ways to spend time together, to still date, to still get out, have dinner, and it may be, a really small thing, and just being able to have those points and times to share, I think are really important. And I think if you have that bond with your kids, and especially with your special needs kids together, it's a team effort, but you've got to share those experiences, share the burdens, and share the successes and the enlightenment that it is, because it's challenging, right? But I think you need to make time for each other. I think you also need to make time individually. So if one is with them all day long, like my wife is doing Zoom calls for school, then it's my turn to give her a break. And vice versa. I think that's really important, is we give ourselves each other time alone to kind of have our own space, but also spend time together. What do you guys think? Anybody else?
If I can say something, I'm the single parent here, so a lot of it, it's really primarily my daughter and myself. But I think from what you just said also, it's really important that there are other people that can spend time with your son or daughter, so that you as a husband and wife can go out, but you also want to remember that you want other people to know your child and for your child to know other people, because if something happens to you, I mean, what if you're both killed in a car accident? And I hate to be morbid here, but these things do happen, and I've seen them happen. You don't want your child to be solely reliant upon you. So like you and your spouse going out to do things and leaving your daughter or son with another person, that lets them get acclimated with other people and other people to know your son or daughter. So there's another side to that as well. It's really important that you go out to maintain and have a healthy marriage, and for your child to have a healthy relationship with other people. There's a secondary gain to you also going out and not being a sole person for your child.
Yeah, my son has a great buddy that he spends time with every week, and they have a great routine and are able to do things together. So that's a great point, Everett. How about you, Dr. Rich?
Well, I think there's two parts. So, most of us have mentioned it, at least in some way. I'll reflect on having a person tell you, it's going to be okay. When my son was born, during the first 24 hours of his being on earth, I was angry at everybody. Something is wrong with my child. I can't do anything about it. I feel helpless. And I didn't realize that I was going through like post-traumatic stress. I was suffering in many ways, and I was angry at my wife. I was angry at God, and I couldn't manage my relationship until I got me together first. So I think one of for me, the most important ingredient to being able to be a good spouse and being able to, or even be empathetic and participate in relieving the stress of the other person, is starting with making sure that you've moved beyond the kind of trauma that, becoming particularly when it's unexpected, becoming a dad of a kid with a disability. Because I could not be a good spouse and didn't care if my wife was stressed out because I was angry. And I realized after I gave it some thought, I couldn't be angry at her. It didn't make sense. But when you're in trauma, sometimes you think things that don't make sense. Like I never stopped believing in God, but me and you ain't cool, homeboy. So for me, once I got my mind clear, I was able to see a lot of the work my wife had just shouldered, because she also had a certain level of guilt that she felt like she needed to just take over everything. And that's not her job. This is our kid. So it helped me, one, be proactive at tuning into what's on her plate. Also recognizing, and this is the one of the answers I gave in the chat was, sometimes things are ebbing and flowing for me. I got a lot of stuff to do. Sometimes I got downtime. If I've got downtime, I'll go wash the dishes, or I'll, pick up some of the clothes and make sure they get into the basket. Just doing something that takes the burden off of her being the person of doing something that would be part of her role as, how we've defined them. But it's sort of that empathy towards, I understand that you got stuff on your plate and I'm thinking about how to make this easier for you. And then my final point is, one of the things that's worked for us is we have a schedule for my son. So after school is over, he has the supplementary homework that we have him do, and then he has free time. Well, during his free time, I'm gonna take at least an hour or two, and we're gonna do that one-on-one playing video games. He wants to be an astronaut, so we've been building a robot from scratch. But I make sure that I'm religiously engaged in those things with him on a daily basis, because I know that she can use that time to do something for her. She can sit back. She likes this show called Married at First Sight. I'm not really a fan, but she gets to watch it on her own, and I don't have to be forced to sit there and watch it.
I hear you.
Oh,
Oh, that's a good one.
That is my piece to that.
No, that's very good. Any other questions out there?
Yes.
One here, Todd.
Jim asked.
Sorry. Oh, sorry,
I'm
Corey.
sorry.
Go ahead. Corey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, how have you created a community of trust that support your children's acceptance and access to services as you protect them from evils of the world? It's a really, really good question. It's really difficult. One of the things that I've used that I found really powerful is a framework called Charting the Life Course. And it's, being a parent is very overwhelming, and being a parent of a special needs child or a child with disabilities is even more overwhelming. There's a framework called Charting the Life Course that I've used. It's accessible to anybody, and it really gives you a framework for thinking about these types of questions and how you can get the appropriate supports for your child or for your family or for yourself. It's a way to look at 5 areas of getting supports, and they being a technology that's available to yourself. There's personal relationships. There's community assets that you are in your community, and there's the stuff that you're eligible for based off of a variety of different things. And by integrating all of these supports together, you can really work to have a safe environment for your child to be accepted and safe as well. And within it, there's a trajectory that you use as well as you look at what you want for your child and what you don't want for your child. And it really helps you think out and plan what supports and resources you have and how you want to use them to get to where you want to go. You can find more information about it on Ohio Family Resource Network, Family Resource Network of Ohio. I apologize. Family Resource Network of Ohio has some information about it there, but it's a really simple tool with a really good framework that helps you kind of think through these things and find the plan that's best for your child with all the resources that you have available to you.
So I have a quick one. I used to be a bully in school. So when I thought about my own child going to school and being the kid who would be a little different, I guess it's sort of poetic justice that was one of my largest concerns, that my son's going to go there, they're going to treat him different, somebody's going to bully him, and I'm going to freak out because, I have a child who is going to depend on people around him. And I know the world is unforgiving and unkind in some places. But what my wife and I did is we looked around for a curriculum that his school could adopt and educate other kids about bullying, and being able to implement a bullying prevention program gave me some comfort that we were at least going to, at his particular school, be able to have them create a culture where bullying would be less likely. But, also, thinking about him in his future life, hopefully, as Everett mentioned, your kid's going to go off and they're going to be independent and they're going to be on their own. And Richie is going to always require somebody to help in his care. And one of the things that, has been important was helping him understand what his care should look like. I go in unapologetically, as I mentioned, every morning to do my good morning to him. And in front of his nurse, I say, how did your nurse do? Did she make sure you had all the stuff you needed during the night? What didn't she do? And he's successfully given good reviews every day. But one, I want him to know that the people who take care of him are going to be accountable for doing it well. And two, that there isn't no secrets about his care. We're going to ask about that care in front of the person who did it so that he can correct them or at least see how the conversation should be structured, because we all want our parents, our children, to be able to go off into the world and us not to have to worry about whether or not people are treating them in a way that maintains their dignity and respect.
Yeah, and I think it's also a matter of trusting in the Lord, or trusting who you leave as a caregiver, potentially, if you have one or can find one, to entrust them to help them do the right things and enable them to help your kid continue to grow throughout time. One of the things we'd like to do as we wrap up here is that hopefully everyone has found this enjoyable, maybe cathartic, helpful in ways, and I found it very helpful for me to kind of hear stories of what other people are doing and get an idea of what resources are out there, because I think that makes us stronger in community. So one of the things we'd like to do for the group is put together a list of common resources and things that we have used in our past, whether it be books, whether it be organizations, associations that would be helpful to you. And we'd like to get your feedback on what you felt about this panel discussion today. And are there things that you'd like to hear about in the future if we were to have further discussions? Because we're a community together, right? And sometimes it does take a village. It's not all about trying to do on our own, right? We need each other. I think that's really important. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts? Corey, anything that you'd like to add?
I do not have any. No, I think this has been a really powerful evening, and I really appreciate everybody's perspectives. And as Todd says, it takes a village, and I think sometimes it takes two villages. So I think reach out to other dads and be supportive and ask how you can help and listen and share the resources with others, and I think that can go a long way. I do think Deb has some closing things for us this evening.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough, Corey and Todd, Everett, and Dr. Rich, to give us your time, and also just revealing your hearts through this time. Sometimes it's hard to revisit things. You get kind of traumatized sometimes, and we don't want to ever re-traumatize anyone. But by sharing stories, you guys all know, when we tell our stories about our kids, that's how we get people to get to know our kids. And so the stories are very important, to share your story with whomever may need encouragement or support. So I thank all of you for giving us your time tonight. I do want to let everyone know that I will be sending I see Jamie. We have future presentations, but I'm going to send that with the survey that we'll be sending each one of the participants for them to fill out. Please fill out that survey. That's very helpful for us to improve anything. We have future presentations. Just this Thursday, Ohio 811 program is a low-income housing for people with disability. Al Condalucci with community inclusion. We're actually going to have a fun one, table talk to disabled millennial women who want to talk about what they wish they knew in high school. That should be interesting. We have a youth charting the life course outreach we're going to be working on the star of the charting the life course. And then every first and third Friday evening, we have a youth empowerment chat. So the youth chat, and that's something that you could contact me so I can connect you with Jamie, who is the youth coordinator. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and have a blessed night. I'm looking forward to future ideas. If you have ideas, send them to me. So good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. This is fun.